Hi, this video covers one of the most popular items on our website, the Pen Fishing Rod. We've sold over 8,300 of these and more every day. It's a really nice ultralight way to go fishing for backcountry trout. And handy to have in a golf bag even if you want to fish in the water hazards while you're out golfing. A lot of people put it under the seat of their car in a little case that we sell and can stop at impromptu lakes and streams and cast a few times, see what's in there. So let's take a look, let's understand this rod and some of the tips and tricks that we can give you from our experience of about 5 years with this product. So here's the different colors that it comes in. You can see these are the case colors. So here's a gold, blue, silver, and silver matches one of the best reels that we have, the spinning reel for it. We'll talk about that more later. And then red. Red's nice, one of my favorites because I can see it in my backpack when I'm digging through frantically trying to find the rod and reel because I see a fish that I want to try and catch. But all the other colors are useful for families that want to differentiate whose rod is whose or just have a mix. So the rod is contained inside the case here. You can see the cap comes off and then it extends out section at a time. Probably one of the best ways to extend it is to simply flick your wrist like that and you'll see that it extends out. It extends to about 36 inches. Some people try and tug at these sections here to try and get more. It's 36 inches. You can tug all day long, you're not going to get it any longer. One of the problems with tugging on it is these can get stuck, these sections here. And if they do, try and collapse them from the bottom like that. You can see they get stuck. You can push it against your hip and try and give it a little more if you try and extend it, and it'll collapse down just fine. If for some reason it's stuck and you feel you're forcing it too much, one trick we've discovered is leave it outside overnight. The cool air of the night, the expansion and contraction of the different sections will be at different rates, and in the morning they often just collapse right down and it's like it was never stuck at all. Some people have told me they can put it in the fridge and accomplish the same thing. So that's another tip for you. When you do extend it, what you want to do is rotate the eyelets. These sections will rotate and the eyelets might not be all aligned, so you can rotate these sections and get them all aligned ultimately with the reel that you've installed on the rod, and we'll do that a little later. One warning, people, we put this on the tip sheet that comes with the product. People want to know how far will it bend. You can see, it has flex to it and all that kind of stuff. The only way to find out how far something will bend is to go beyond the maximum bending point and break it. So don't be tempted to do a lot of hand bending. When the fishing line is installed, the load is distributed evenly across the eyelets, so that's a more natural load. Hand bending can create a shear point right nearby because you're not distributing the load evenly, and that's where it'll snap. So let's look at the reel very quickly here. I'll put this one aside for a second. Here's the spinning reel that we like with it the most. Some people are intimidated by spinning reels. Don't be. They look complex, they really aren't. The concept is basically to open this bail. You can see here, it locks like that. Right now, I'm going to tighten this up here. This is the reel handle, and it comes loose like that for shipping. You want to tighten it up when you get it. Once it's open like this, you have line on here, and when you cast, it can freely go. There's nothing resisting it. That allows you to use 2 pound, 4 pound, 6 pound test line, very light lines, and very light lures, and get long casts with it. Once you cast and you spin, you see this bail flips like that. The line will come in through here, and then you can start your retrieve, and it evenly puts the line around the spool there. So very simple. There's lots of YouTube websites that show how to use a spinning wheel, how to put line properly on a spinning reel. There is a trick. Basically, it has to do with the rotation. But check those out. Like I said earlier, this can be left to right-hand retrieve. You could simply unscrew this. This handle will come out, and you flip it to the other side. So you can choose which hand you use to retrieve with. On the rear, there's a lock or free spin here. If you want a free spin line out, you can do it that way. If you're trying to do it with tides or something, or the classic position where it's locked, it won't reverse. Anti-reverse there. Let's see here. Oh, the drag, this is important. This is the front drag adjustment here, and you screw it down to tighten the drag, open it up to loosen. Properly set drag, there's a lot of opinions on that. I like to make it fairly light so that the fish can run. You are using lightweight equipment here, using lightweight lines, so you want to tire the fish out. Generally, I'll set the drag tight enough that I don't hear the clicking of the line when I'm retrieving a lure or whatever bait I'm using, and then tighten it just a little beyond that, and then it should be about right. Oh, one tip about the spool. You can unscrew this all the way, and this spool, the line spool, will come off. So you could have multiple spools of different pound test line or different type of line if you wanted to experiment with some. One thing, don't load these on the high-speed loaders found at sporting goods stores. These are plastic components in here, and that will break them, guaranteed. So hand load it per the tips on various videos. And why this reel is very special is the special base. Some people want to use other reels on these pen rods. You simply can't. I'll show you why. You can see here's the connectors to put it in. You can see these right there, and they're very narrow. You can see that foot just fits in there, and get this other one in there, and then you tighten it, and then you're in. Normal reels have much fatter bases there, and they just won't fit, so you have to use the spinning reel with it. And now let's talk about some other general tips. We've talked about the basic function here. I'm going to show you a few other things. Get this one off here. Put that aside for a moment. Okay, when you're collapsing it, like I said before, a lot of young people have not been experienced with antennas like telescopic antennas before, and they will take their hand on the end and attempt to try and jam it. That will break it. If you do break it, if you do break the tip, for example, we do have replacement tips that you can order and instructions on how to do it. But that's just for the last couple of inches. If you break it somewhere else, the rod's pretty worthless. You need a new one. And they're not expensive, so that's not a disaster. But just try and collapse them from the section like that. Feed them in, and you'll be good. There's one other thing. When you have it collapsed like this, you'll notice they have a shirt pocket clip on the cap of these. If you look inside, and I don't know if you can see it in the video here, but this clip has some prongs that come through inside. And if you happen to put the cap on so that you interfere with the prongs, you can scratch these. You can, maybe the cap won't go on and you force it and then you might break something. So when you're putting the cap on, turn it 90 degrees or 180 degrees away from the eyelets when they're all lined up like that, okay? And that'll close a lot easier, and you'll be set to go. Let's see what we can find here. This is a special case. This happens sometimes when you're transporting the rod, and if you notice here, there's no nut. And then the nut here is what we need to connect the reel. Well, where could it have gone? And if you look in there, aha, it's in there. It got stuck. And so we need a special tool to get that nut. And it's a very high-tech, sophisticated tool made from a clothes hanger. You can do this with cutting pliers and a needle nose pliers pretty quick. You can make it like this, and you see the intent of it. We want to get that nut. You're going to close these together, and it'll hook the nut and get it out. Let's see how we can do it. It works almost every time. So now that we have the nut out, we're good to go. That happens, we see that a lot in the units we get from China. It does happen if you store it under your car seat. You know, the vibration can move that nut off, and now you can simply put that on and use it, and you'll be good to go. Now the other thing you might have noticed on this one here, there's two areas that we think need modification from the factory. One is this handle unscrews here. In fact, a lot of people unscrew this handle and say, how does this fishing rod work? I don't get it. That's not meant to be. There's no user serviceable parts in there. There's not meant to be any way you access that. But it gets loose from time to time. So what we like to do is put the pipe thread tape like you see there, put it on, and then when you screw it in, it's a lot tighter, won't come off, Won't be an annoyance, won't even be a temptation for somebody to open that up. Now the other place you might notice we put pipe thread tape on is right up here. And that's where the lock nut that comes down and secures the reel in place, that's where it goes. That helps immensely. If you don't do that, the threads are a little loose and the reel keeps getting loose. It might drop off on you when you're fishing and you'll feel it loose in your hands and so on. So you simply put that on. That's the common pipe thread tape you'll see used for plumbing. It comes in rolls like that. And you simply get a strip like this. You cut and you just put it around the threads. Trying to line it down on the threads. You don't want it clogging up the works inside there. And go around and push it into the threads. And that makes it a lot firmer when you put these nuts on. And it's a lot smoother for connecting and will be a lot more sure connection when you lock it up. You can also use something like Loctite if you have that around. That's a liquid that you put in the threads and that'll achieve the same effect.